Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Stone and Chalk and welcome to an evening of kindship. It's really wonderful to see so many people here today. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the lands of the Kaurna people and that the Kaurna people are the traditional custodians of the Adelaide Plains on which we gather today. We pay our respects to the elders past and present, and we recognise and respect the cultural and heritage beliefs and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that there are continuing importance to the Kaurna people today, and we extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here this evening with us. So Kindship, an evening of celebration for an absolutely wonderful social networking platform, community, growing amazing piece of technology as well. Before I launch into it, I'd really love to welcome the founding team to the stage to stand with me. So Summer, many of you may know as seen on TV and around the place, around Stone and Chalk. If you're familiar with Adelaide, you may have met Summer, but we've got our whole founding team here today who have travelled from New South Wales. I'll let Summer take over and do a bit of the introduction. Did you use this? Thanks. Not on. You have to turn on. Is this mic on?
We are a tech company, so thank you so much everybody for coming tonight. We weren't sure how many people would end up turning up, so it's so amazing to see so many of you. I'm very excited to introduce you to my beautiful co-founders, but I thought I'd just start off by sharing a little bit of the story of the origins of Kindship, because I think that's really at the heart of our company and our people and everything that we do. So my background, I'm a speech pathologist by trade, and I also am autistic. And I remember this moment, I'll never forget it. I was standing at the school gate of the school that I was working at, which was a school for children with autism. And it was raining and I was feeling a little bit impatient because I was getting really wet, and I was waiting for this student to rock up who was running late. And Elijah eventually arrived and I helped him out of his car, and we were all sort of running up to the classroom, and I turned around at the last minute to look back at his mum, who was still parked in the driveway. And it was raining really hard, but even through the window and the rain, I could see the fact that she was just bawling her eyes out. I didn't have a chance to talk to her in that moment, but later we had a phone call, and it turned out that that morning had been really hard for the family. Elijah had had a meltdown, which is very different from a tantrum if you know anything about autism, and had injured himself and his mum and his baby brother, and she was processing that. So as a speech therapist in that situation, I jumped in and I started to try suggest some helpful strategies, but I couldn't help thinking, what would it mean to this family to be able to talk to somebody who knew what that situation felt like, to take that child home at the end of the day and every day, which is kind of where the idea behind Kindship came from. It was around the time that the NDIS was starting to be rolled out, and I knew that if this was going to be something that would take off, it would need to be something that we built together with the parent community. So I talked to hundreds and hundreds of families from around the world to understand what their experiences were, what the ups looked like, what the downs looked like, and what Kindship could mean as a solution to that. We ended up having an initial group of founding families come on who helped us test what was now a very embarrassing MVP, which I don't even want to talk about, but it was a starting point. And then we got to the end of last year, and I remember sitting at the computer, and there was this beautiful Instagram page that we were following on Instagram that had this little girl in a wheelchair that just had the most incredible smile. And I was just like, I wish I could talk to this mum. Like, imagine if we had somebody like her behind the platform. So I reached out to Tara, and I think it was the most terrifying phone call of my life. I don't think I made any sense. And at the end of it, I think I sent you an email where I was like, hey, would you like to work for us? So she said yes, which I was not, didn't expect. So Tara came on board, and she was really helping us from that marketing point of view. And I think Andreas, my co-founder, who is looking after my 3-year-old tonight, couldn't be here, but he's the tech brains behind the whole organisation. We sat together and we were like, we feel like we've built this beautiful piece of social networking technology, but we don't know how to put the community heartbeat behind it. And like, we can do our best, but what if we could bring in people who knew how to do that? Which is where these two beautiful women come in. So Sandy, I actually, her daughter went to the school that I was working at, so we've known each other for a long time, and they had been running a social network on a Facebook group that just had the most incredible positive vibe, and everybody was so engaged. And so I reached out to them and I said, look, we're trying to do the same thing, I feel like. You're using Facebook. We've built a platform where we want to actually create this really safe space for these families to be able to connect. Like, what if we joined forces? Again, I think I was shaking when I was writing that email. And they said yes. So they came on board, and now I'm so privileged to say that all three of these women are co-founders of Kindship, and honestly, I can't imagine where we would be today without them, and that's really what tonight is about. There's so many people in this room who have touched this project in such a special way, and we just really wanted to bring you all together and to acknowledge, there's too many of you to point out, but you know who you are, and we just want to say thank you so much. This project has a huge heart behind it, it has a huge opportunity behind it, but it's really about people, and you are all so important to us. So that's me, and I'm very happy now to hand you over to Tara to tell you a little bit about her.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. So my name is Tara, I have 3 daughters. One of them, Willow, so she has a diagnosis of cerebral palsy and autism. And I remember like that, so we knew that cerebral palsy was a possible diagnosis, but at 7 months old, when the paediatrician told us, I just remember feeling instantly alone. And I don't know why. I was with my husband, I had a supportive family, I had everyone around me that wanted to help me, but I still felt so alone and just shocked. So now that Kindship is around, I often think, imagine if at that same time they told me about this platform, or the magazine we have, they handed that to me. So I knew there was actually a community out there to support each other and know that you're not on this journey by yourself. And yes, Summer reached out last year. Willow started school 2 years ago, and I remember thinking, oh, once she's at school, obviously I'll go back to work, like it'll be so easy then, I'll drop her to school and then go do my job, but it just doesn't happen like that. There's appointments, she didn't go to school for that first year, I had to go pick her up all the time, like it was just so difficult, and I did try to work 2 days a week, and it just wasn't possible. So when Summer reached out, I was like, oh, this is amazing, flexible working opportunities for home, which is another thing that makes me so passionate, because that's like one of our core visions. Like, we want to be able to help families navigate that work life and find a part of them again and do something outside of just being a parent and all those challenges. So yeah, there is so much that I'm just thrilled to be a part of it, really. I live it, and I know what it's like, and I feel honoured to be standing here with these ladies. So,
Hi everyone, my name's Sandy. Most importantly, I'm a mum of 2. I have a teenage son whose name's Cooper, and my daughter Imogen, who's almost 12. She's autistic, and she's one of the sassiest humans I know, fiercely independent, so she teaches me lots of lessons every single day. So I have a background in education and also of personal development training and business, so I love to help grow people, basically. So I've been involved in helping to grow our volunteer team and our community, and also to build relationships with people outside of our communities who can really help us to grow. So I'm super excited about the opportunities that Tara mentioned. I know how many of our community they're so skilled, but often they don't feel they have the opportunity to use those skills. And I also know they feel really unheard, so I'm really excited about where this is going to take us. So thank you all for coming tonight.
Hi everyone, I'm Steph. So I have 2 beautiful little girls, Imogen and Charlotte, and they are just my world. To take it way back, probably the penny dropping moment for me was a day at gymnastics with Charlotte, and she hid underneath a trampoline, she was having a meltdown, and I'm looking around going, like, this isn't the typical experience that I had envisioned in my brain, like what's going on, my daughter's different. And I remember just that feeling of isolation, disconnect and loneliness that day, and I probably thought that I was the only one in the world who felt that way, but the reality is that there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people, if not millions in the world, who have this feeling of disconnect and isolation, and that's what we try and do at Kindship. So my role is really community driven. I work with the people in the heart of our community. They're the reason, like apart from my family obviously, but I get up with so much passion each day, because how can I not be passionate to work with these epic people and obviously our amazing team. So thank you so much for being here tonight, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, founding team. Brilliant, brilliant people. My name is Liz. I work behind the scenes of this beautiful crew that you've just met this evening. I too am a mother of 2 children, one of which, my daughter, happens to have a disability, or as she calls it, she has a superpower, because no one can think or understand the things that she can. And so we've had an interesting journey, as the women that have been here already have discussed with you, navigating the pathway of finding people that understand the experience of how you're raising a child might be different to those that you might have met at Mother's Group or you see at the school gate. And that's what Kindship creates, is that real community where there are other parents that you can lean on that help you navigate, but also other supports for when things are going absolutely amazingly well, which is another wonderful thing about Kindship. So we're here today to celebrate the success that has already been created, and also to acknowledge that there is a huge amount still to come. We have some guests with us this evening who are going to speak and entertain you for a while, and then we have networking drinks at the end. By way of housekeeping, I probably should have told you at the very beginning, there are bathrooms at the back, exits where the exit signs are, and there's a bar that is well stocked with drinks, which you can access again after everyone stops speaking, so we'll let you back there. First of all, I'd love to introduce you to our speaker of the night. First speaker, sorry, it's not working. So we have here with us today Adam Long, who is the ethical CEO, strategist and founder of high impact businesses. Adam has founded multiple businesses, including Thunder Labs, Australia's most purpose-led cloud computing consultancy, Conscious Step, the sock brand that has raised more than $1 million for charity, and Smarter Drafter, which is AI for the legal sector. When not building businesses, Adam can be found advising on strategy for the likes of Humanitics, the Equality Institute and CBA, or speaking at events like the World Economic Forum and an evening of Kindship. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you very much. We're just going to hit a little play button on that, and someone's going to work some magic. Almost. See if you can figure out what's wrong with my outfit today. Yeah, you don't hide the merchandise. Hello, everybody. So, I'm Adam Long, and here we are to talk a little bit about social enterprise. And I've turned up tonight with a little bit of good news and a little bit of bad news. Which one do you want first? Who wants the bad news first? Who wants the good news first? Show of hands. Come on, you're an optimistic bunch. Let's do the good news first. You might be surprised. It's good news affecting every single one of you. Do you guys remember during the Occupy movement, people were protesting against the 1%? It was all about the 1% richest people in the world. Well, guess what? If you're an average Australian, yeah, that's you. You are the 1%. If you look at the incomes of people right across the world, the average households, yeah, it's actually you guys. So, Kindship team, this is amazing. You're running an investment round and you've got the 1% in the room tonight. Incredible, you're right here. So that's the good news. Here we are, we're all actually sitting at the peak of humanity according to GDP and all those other numbers that economists seem to think matter. But I did say there was going to be bad news, didn't I? Bad news is you will never be satisfied. Because does anyone here feel like they're in the 1%? Does anyone here feel rich? You wake up every day and go, yeah, I've got so much money. And we actually are in the 1%, just by virtue of having a toilet that flushes, clean water, the education that we have, the quality of life that we have, the amount of meat that most people eat, unless you're vegans. We don't feel rich, and it feels like it's never enough. And then some people spend their life trying to get more in all the wrong ways. And some people feel like it's never enough, but they're doing it in the right ways. People like this guy, David Attenborough. He's in his 90s and he hasn't stopped working because there's so much to do. We might be sitting in this top 1% of human experience so far, but it doesn't feel done, does it? It doesn't feel like, yeah, we're about 99% done with humanity, 1% more, and we'll be all right. No, there's so much to do. And in our lifetime, there's this number that floats around of 80,000 hours. That's how much work energy. I reckon it's 3 times that amount if you're parenting a kid. But 80,000 hours roughly to put towards a cause that matters for you, whether that's in work, as a volunteer, education, academia, again, parenting, that is work 100%. 80,000 hours to commit to something. So the question for you guys is, what's worthy of that? What cause in the world do you see is worthy of your 80,000 hours? What is worthy of waking up for every single day and pushing for? I want to tell you about one that is for me. It's this person right here. No, not her. Her. Her name was Jacobea. I met her while volunteering in the Philippines back in 2005. I was on what I now recognize as a colonial mission of volunteerism. I thought I was saving the world at the time by building houses for poor people. Turns out they don't need me to build houses, and turns out they're not poor people, they're just people, and once you become friends with them, you get really interested in their lives. So became friends with the family of Jacobea, and I noticed as this group of engineers I was with was participating in this program, she'd follow us around every day. And these were weekdays. These were school days. I saw other kids going to school. She wasn't. And so, as happens on these programs, we ended up in the office of the local mayor. They love to welcome delegations. And I asked the mayor, I said, "Mayor, why do you think girls like Jacobea aren't going to school?" And he kind of puffed up his chest and said, "You know what, the government puts so much money into education, but we just can't find good teachers. The teachers aren't out there. They can't inspire the kids. It all falls apart there." And I left that meeting going, maybe if we could just change the way teachers were recruited and changed, that might make such a big difference. But then I managed to get to a school a couple of days later and talk to some teachers, and these teachers were phenomenal. Smart, yes. Inspired, yes. Capable, yes. But the kids weren't going to school. So I asked one of the teachers, "Why do you think girls like Jacobea aren't going to school?" One of the teachers said, "Look, we do our best for them, but if the parents don't value education, we've got no hope of keeping them in class. That's where it falls apart." So I went and spoke to Jacobea's parents. "Hey, just noticed Jacobea's been following us around. Hey, she doesn't go to school much, does she?" And they just looked so upset at the suggestion. They immediately started telling me about their frustrations, how they're trying to instill in her the value of education, how important it is for her future, but she just won't go. They pack her lunch, they put her uniform on, she sneaks off, doesn't go. That was a point where I realized I'd been asking the wrong people. So I finally sat down with Jacobea and said, "Jacobea, what's going on here? Why aren't you going to school?" And she kind of wrinkled up her nose and said, "The toilet's been broken for ages and I don't like peeing in the street." Right. All of that came back to access to a toilet. It was in that moment that I recognized that these tiny little things can have a huge impact on people's future. Like whether a girl gets an entire education, forget about the privilege. We flushed clean water down the toilet and it's like, come on, just a working one would have made a difference. And so that was the inspiration for going into the world of charity. And I did a lot of work with Engineers Without Borders, thinking, right, we're going to get out there, do some engineering, get toilets installed, make it happen, clean water for everybody. And then joined the board and we spent all our time talking about fundraising. It was an organization designed for impact that spent all its time begging, writing grants, worrying about hiring people who could write grants. It all felt like it was going in the wrong spot. And at this stage, back in the early 2000s, the word social enterprise wasn't really that common, but I teamed up with a couple of people and we decided that the answer was obviously socks. You guys get the connection, don't you? Look, we're looking for something simple that I'd already screwed up a 3D printing business. Don't do 3D printing businesses. I lost a lot of money on that. We won't talk about that tonight, but that was a real fuck up. Not talking about it at all, but don't do that. Socks, simple. Can win on marketing, and most importantly, we could make a commitment that every single pair was going to make a tangible difference to a charity. We started with a single stall in Glebe Markets in Sydney, back before I could even grow a full beard. It's hard to see in that photo, but geez, I was young there. And we needed a community to get us started. We couldn't afford to start a business. I'd lost it all on the 3D printing. We're not talking about the 3D printing, but I'd lost all my money on that. We needed to fundraise and crowdfund to start our program here. And over 30 days, we had the backing of a few thousand people that let us make the first order of socks. That helped get us investors on board. That got us into a few stores, like this guy in Australia, David Jones, his name is. He runs a store. We're in a few thousand around the world now. People like Matt Damon and Jane Goodall wear the socks. Numbers like, not just them, Socks That Save Dogs. They support dog shelters as well. So each one has a tangible impact to others. And the numbers like, millions of dollars to charity and all that is nice, but I like where it all ends up. So 500,000 trees planted since we started. That is not something I could have ever done on my own. And that's what I want you to take away from this. The power of social enterprise is the collective coming together to inspire and create an action that's not possible as an individual. If I worked hard to become a well-paid corporate lawyer and gave a good chunk of my salary to charity every year, I still couldn't have afforded as much of a donation as this organisation has in just a couple of years. If I wanted to plant 500,000 trees, Sam up the back and I, that's what we do on our weekends, one at a time. We couldn't have done that in the lifetime that we've got so far. And that is the power of bringing this all together. Because social enterprises have a really important role to play. There's problems out there that government know about but can be too slow to act on, or that's not a priority, or there's just not the funding there, or they just don't understand it. There's things that, businesses make a lot of good impact on the side after all the profit and stuff is sorted. So there is a role for CSR, but it's not making impact on the right problems. It's making an impact on the problems that are marketable. And then you've got charities, in my experience, spending all the time talking to donors instead of engineering water systems. That's where social enterprise come in. See, governments can tax and then make things happen. Businesses are self-supporting and seem to have endless cash to throw about. Charities spend their whole time begging. Social enterprises are self-supporting. They thrive, they build up momentum, and they can have a greater impact because of that. And so it's weird to think of social enterprise as a thing that needs to be separate from business. But I blame the 80s for that. Got to blame the 80s. Gordon Gekko, all that stuff. Somewhere along the line, it went from business is a vehicle for creating value to business is a vehicle for creating shareholder value. And that's what it all comes back to. And this is the reason publicly listed companies struggle to make a tangible difference in what they do. They hire someone in a corporate social responsibility role and they give a bit of money away on the side. Because they left out a letter in this word. Have you got it? Do you know what the letter is? Can you guess? It goes at the end. This is like Wheel of Fortune. You win $500 if you get it right. It is an S. Shareholder values. A business is a vehicle that people can direct in any way they want, and it doesn't have to be for profit exclusively, because what people value goes beyond so much more than profit. If you are, for example, the richest person in New York, and you want to make New York have clean, breathable air that's nice to walk around in, that feels like a reasonable goal. You can't do that by being the richest person in New York. You've got to do it by harnessing a group of people, by making change that goes beyond any one individual. I know it's frustrating when we hear about these problems that happen in the world, the Pacific garbage patch, climate change just seems so unreachable, a new child being diagnosed with a disability every 2 hours. It feels like we are just one small person against this. What can we do? The only answer is to not do nothing. Because when we band together, that's when this real change really happens, and we can use businesses as a vehicle to create the values that matter for us. And it's not a profit that the government's going to take 30 to 40% of each year. There's shortcuts by building it into a system that can make an impact. And this isn't the trend of the moment. This is a real movement, which is people forgetting the 80s. Damn you, 80s. The only good thing to come out of the 80s was Samantha up the back. She's pretty good. So I told you it would be embarrassing if you came. The only thing, we get rid of that. Let's go back to what actually makes a real impact. And there's two types of social enterprises. You've got your enablers and you've got your direct impact. The enablers are the one who, because of what they're doing, there is a direct link to a mission. They enable other people to do really good things, like the socks is one, or like these guys, Humanitics. Now, unless you got a VIP invitation, you probably actually registered for tonight using Humanitics, if you remember that. It's a ticketing platform created by some smart guys in Sydney who, one of them was earning $500,000 in a hedge fund job, and the other one quit his job. They shared a salary for 3 years to be able to get this off the ground. That's how they funded this. It's a ticketing platform. The profits from tickets go to causes like Education for Girls in Southeast Asia or Code.org, some pretty phenomenal organisations, and they're raising a stack of money. Look, they support one of the same charities as the socks do, and I get a little bit jealous when the numbers creep up higher, but competition, not about ego, is it? So the point here is these guys starting this organisation required people to take a chance on them. They built some software that was nowhere near as good as Eventbrite and had to convince people to switch across to it. And then they got better and better, and now they have features Eventbrite don't have, and now Eventbrite is trying to win back some clients that they lost over the last couple of years by giving money to charity. So kind of works either way now. It's pressured the one who was putting all the profits into Silicon Valley, and now they have to give some back to charity in order to stay in business at all. That's the power of this once you get going. Who gives a crap? We all know this brand now. People didn't know them a couple of years ago, and now they're everywhere. I love this. When Simon Griffith started this business, he said, I'm sitting on this toilet until we reach our $50,000 funding goal so we can start this business. I mean, some people stand up for what they believe in. This guy sits down for them. But it's amazing, right? The toilet paper is funding so much more than Kleenex could have done this, but they didn't. Because they're stuck in this idea of shareholder value and forgot that what people value is a world beyond profit. It's solving the problems that we can't solve by splashing a bit of profit afterwards. And then you've got your direct impact organizations as well. Patagonia, freaking amazing. You might have seen recently they gave away the whole company to a charitable trust. But I love that the way they built their products was about solving the problem first. It's the complete opposite of fast fashion. It's fashion that's so slow they don't even want you to buy their jackets. Or organizations like Thunder Labs, that's what I'm working on now, where by running a tech company, we're actually creating a pathway for Indigenous kids and underrepresented groups to get into tech. Ones that can't go to university, that there's a barrier there, would otherwise go and get an apprenticeship as a plumber. Instead, we take them on as apprentice as a coder. And so we're fixing the issues in tech right back at the start, right back with the representation. And I'm pretty proud to say, you might remember this photo from earlier, she's now working for Thunder Labs. Not her, her friend. These photos. And, of course, someone who's right at the heart of the direct impact is an organisation that recognised something that government wasn't doing, Facebook was never going to pay attention to, and doing as a charity would be really freaking hard. And there's some very, very clever people in this room that found a way to make this self-sufficient, enabling, and actually scale from where it is by making impact so much bigger than it otherwise could have been. Enabler and direct impact all in one, but the point is every single one of these organizations I've just shown started with a small group of people who were willing to take a chance on them. Started with a small community that said, yes, we need to make this happen and we're going to do what it takes to do it. We're going to put up with the Humanitics early bugs in the software because we know there's $500 million to go to charity in a couple of years if we take that risk now. For those that said, can you guys even make socks? Like, don't take fashion advice from me, but people would still back the socks up front. And that's the thing. It's not a moment in time, it's a movement. The biggest issues that we're facing in society can't be solved by any one individual. There's not going to be a Nobel Prize for an individual that solves climate change. If only Superman could turn up and, magic away racial issues in the US. It's not what Superman's made to do. There is no hero coming, but there is a movement of people who are making the changes necessary to change the world. Because social enterprises are a design tool. What kind of world do we want to live in? Here's a vehicle for making it happen. And the opportunity, the invitation of the moment is to watch or to be a part of it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Adam. I just was so immersed in that I forgot that I was the next one to come back to the stage. You really had me. I think both entertaining but also some really amazing messages in there that I think we can all reflect on afterwards around how we involve ourselves in enterprises that do really matter. And on that note, I'd really love to welcome to the stage some parents from within our Kindship community who can tell you exactly what it means to be part of the enterprise that matters. So we have with us at the moment, I've got Amanda, Caroline and Tabitha, who are part of our Kindship community and here to talk to you tonight. So before I launch into any questions, would you mind introducing yourselves and telling us a little bit about your journey and what's led you to be here?
Sure. So my name is Amanda Kenny. I have 5 boys at home, and disability has been a big part of my life since my birth. So I was born into disability, and my mum was very disabled and she lived in a wheelchair. And my 4th child was born, and he had a lot of problems. He was in and out of hospital for a long time, and in the last couple of years, recently diagnosed with autism, ADHD, and a few other things. So yeah, that's me, and that's why I'm really excited about Kindship and what it has to bring for everybody else in this community.
Hi, my name's Caroline. I'm based here in Adelaide. I actually live up north of Adelaide. I have 3 boys. My oldest, Hugo, he was diagnosed with autism actually in August this year. My middle son, Oliver, he was diagnosed with autism level 3 nonverbal 5 years ago, and my youngest, Leo, has a speech and language delay. So there's a lot of, I want to say, chaos in my household. But we're trying to be involved in the local community, which can sometimes be difficult when you get looks and stares because your kids are different. So that's what I feel being part of this community. We still get the looks and stares, but everyone's like, it's a look and knowing that you're in the same boat, same position. So I'll pass.
My name is Tabitha. I'm also based here in Adelaide, western suburbs. My son is 8 years old and he is autistic, ADHD and a whole other list of things. And we had quite a journey of 5 years of chasing around and saying, you know, my son's different, my son's unique, and everyone going, don't worry, he'll grow out of it, he'll grow out of it. And nobody understood us, nobody listened to us, I didn't feel heard. And that's where it came about, our journey of this community and how much it's changed us, and we'll lead into that.
Excellent. So could you tell me how you heard about Kindship and what was it that led you to download the app? I imagine you've got plenty of apps on your phone, probably using Facebook and other things already. What was it about Kindship that made you want to be part of it?
So for me personally, Sandy, one of the co-founders, is one of my very best friends, and she has been for a really, really long time. So when Sandy told me about what she was doing with her previous company she was making with Steph, I just jumped in. I'm here for this, I am helping you, and I just volunteered with them and helped them right from the get-go.
I was part of the organisation, I guess, that Sandy and Steph had started, and when they came on board with Kindship, I've sort of, I don't know how to describe it, we've sort of taken on board and run with it, because the previous, just that support was amazing, and to be able to now support other parents is, that having that meaningful impact is just amazing as well.
So we had sort of hit the peak of our journey where I got to the point that all my resources were exhausted. I had nobody else I could reach to. Everybody I'd got tips from and I'd tried everything and it hadn't worked. And a friend said to me, you've got to join this group of mums. It's positive, it's uplifting, because I found a lot of groups, you got in there, it was a lot of negative energy. Parents in this space are really exhausted and have a lot of challenges going on, and I didn't want to wallow in that space. I wanted a solution-based. So I came into Sandy and Steph's community, which connected me with mums locally here in Adelaide, and we met at a playground, and from that straight away, I got some advice and was like, oh, I get it. I can see your child. I can see this. You need to pursue this. And I used that resource of the community and the other mums here in Adelaide. I searched using filters and found local resources. But what I found is there's just nothing like it here. We were at a loss where we had been to multiple paediatricians, multiple specialists, multiple services, and just kept getting knocked down. And once I found the community, everyone was like, right, go see this paediatrician, go see this therapist. And once we hit into that, we'd been on a 5-year journey, and it literally took me months to get an answer. So getting right to the source of it from mums and parents and carers who get it, instead of the system which just kept pushing us round and round in a circle. And that absolutely changed our lives. And that was purely people just contributing through no benefit to them at all other than they'd lived that journey. And I really wanted to be part of that, and Kindship was just something that I could see going places. And with so much missing here in Adelaide, I was like, we don't have these big things. We don't have a way of connection. I felt so lost, and I was like, I need to be sharing this out there. And Kindship is a great way that you can connect locally as well as all around Australia and give out those tips and resources to be able to keep growing and all building each other up in that positive world.
So it sounds like a lot happens in the app. Is there a real standout moment that you think is something that really epitomises what it's all about?
I personally think the face-to-face meetups have been life-changing, not only for myself but for loads of the other mums and carers that come to our little groups, and you see them and they come in and they're scared and they're feeling lonely and they're sad, and you just give them space and you listen to them and you hear their stories and you see their shoulders drop and you see them exhale and relax, and they finally feel like they have found their home. They have found people that will listen to them and understand them and point them in the right direction and understand how they're feeling. And I think just giving people that opportunity and that space has made life-changing changes for them.
Wonderful.
The meetups are a big thing as well, because I've done some online meetups for South Australia, as well as I hosted one up in Gawler. But personally, I had an incident early this year where my youngest son and I ended up both in hospital with asthma-related stuff. And we hadn't told many family members that Hugo was on medication, and we had to let them know, and there was a whole heap of backlash that went with that. And I went into the app and I said, this is what's going on, how do people deal with it? And there was just a community of, it's okay, don't worry about it, here's how to, I don't know, deal with it, but here's the support to help with that situation.
So I think I could sort of second both of those. And I think for me, it's definitely the in-person meetups. One of the things that I found is that it was just such a lonely journey, that I would go and say to friends, this is the struggle we've had, this is the week we've had, and they'd be like, oh yeah, but your son's fine. And I said, he's fine because he's in an environment that he's happy. And I found I was constantly dismissed. Whereas you go to a meetup and you say, oh, this is the week I've had, this is something that happened, and they're like, oh, I get it. Have you tried this or this? One of the instances recently, we had a meetup where a parent came along and was just in a similar situation, dismissed from their journey of your child being labelled the naughty kid or the one who's not going to have friends because of their behaviour. And being able to then give that advice that I had once received of advocating for your child to receive what they're entitled to, that their life can be better, your life can be better, but just building them up and giving them the confidence to fight and not be dismissed and belittled by specialists, giving them the advice on the journey of where they can go what services they can access, and things that there isn't a magic list out there of something of, you know, you can register for NDIS, you can register for carer support, things like that. Whereas in Kindship, that community of people who have done and travelled the path and who have got this advice is amazing as that portal of you can get the advice of someone who's lived it, someone who's local to it, and really build each other up. And it's magic to see where people come along needing us to hold them in that space of being so down and so upset and challenged through the journey, and then watching them go, you know, through periods of time and then come to a meetup absolutely beaming because they've had a win and they've been heard and their child's getting support and their family life has changed. And that's where you really feel it come that end to end, that we are building each other up in that positive environment.
Wonderful. It sounds like the interpersonal connections have been really blossoming for all of you, and I'm sure you're giving that impact back into the app. Can you tell us what kind folk do? Who are kind folk? What does that mean?
So kind folk are basically volunteer parents that are helping us run our Kindship app, and they doing it out of their own heart. They're doing it out of their own goodness to help one another, to help other parents in the same situation. And I was a kind folk, and actually now am employed by Kindship. So, you know, one thing's led to another, and it's given me massive opportunity in my life. But all of the kind folk are just amazing, giving, wonderful humans.
So I'm also a kind folk. I am one of the Guardian team. So when it comes to the app, it's all about the safety. So when if people report a profile for some inappropriateness or whatever reason, or they block, or there are certain profiles that come through that are flagged by the app, the Guardian team review it and then make the decision whether that profile is allowed access or potentially, I would say, banned. Banned. And also watching the newsfeed and making sure it's appropriate comments. Even some of the real tough topics, we're not shying away from them. So as long as the comments and as long as the topic is talked about in a respectful manner, it's pretty good. And secondary, I'm also part of in the local chat groups, one of the captains, I think, for the either Barossa or the Adelaide North chat group at the moment as well.
So I'm part of the Kind Folk community as well. I am a Kind Folk host, so I've been hosting face-to-face meetups here in Adelaide and making those connections there. So we're trying to spread ourselves as far and wide as we can, not just keeping to our own local areas. So we've done meetups in western suburbs, Adelaide Hills, down south. So, and now we're building that community of people going, well, I'm loving this, I want to grow it in my space. And it's that sharing that experience, people seeing you and going, but how do I get where you are? And that's something that people look at, some of us who have been on the journey and had this support of this community for a while and are going, well, I'm never going to be like you. And you say, well, you can, because I was in that position 3 or 4 years ago, and it's the community that built me up. And so now it's such a growing community of kind folk that want to be part of it from an invested perspective of just living the experience and wanting to give their time as part of that community.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda, Caroline and Tabitha. I have one last opportunity for a question, really. Is there anything you would like to add to characterise the value of kindship for everybody here in the room tonight? I think you've done a wonderful job already of answering all my questions, but is there anything you'd like to add that really you think characterises the value?
Yes. I just think it makes me sad. As I mentioned before, I recently was employed by Kindship. I had been working with them officially only for a little while when my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer. So I obviously didn't have much time left with my father, and I had to spend a lot of time at the hospital, so I couldn't work. And Summer and Andreas and the beautiful team, I said, you don't need to pay me, just give me time. Just let me have time without leave. And they said, don't be silly. They said, don't be silly, Amanda. We're behind you, we love you. You do what you need to do. And I spent 6 weeks beside my father, not having to worry about my pay not coming through, not having to worry about losing my job position. And I stayed with my dad until his very last breath. And I don't believe that there's another company out there that would have done that for me after I'd only been with them for such a short time. And I think that just shows the heart and the goodness that is behind this team. And you know, I will be forever grateful that they gave me that opportunity to be with my dad during those final moments, and I'll always, always be grateful for that.
I mean, personally for me, I don't know where my mental health would be without the Kindship community. It was one of, I guess, isolation and self-imposed isolation, because it was hard to take the 3 kids out anywhere. And now I'm able to make a meaningful impact and connection, not just to people in my local community, but just the Kindship community in general.
Thank you, Caroline.
I think for me, it's that connection of the village. So the people who have lived the journey, we wouldn't be where we are today without the support, without that advice of every problem that you come across, somebody has lived it before within the community and is willing to give their advice. And what I've got from that, I've not got from any other service or therapist or anything. It's all come from the parents and the lived experience, and it is absolutely invaluable what this Kindship community is providing that no other service has been able to provide at all. The parents are so unsupported through many of the services that are out there. Funding is gratefully available for the children, but the parents are often not considered in that, and there's such a mental health perspective of it, and so many other things. And to have Kindship taking that next level of really creating that village and a community of people who genuinely care for each other is really amazing, and it's only just going to keep on growing and spreading as that passion builds even more.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Amanda, Caroline, Tabitha. I feel very privileged to have some of our members of the community here tonight that are willing to share so much of their personal journeys with us, so we really appreciate that, and they're going to be with us through the evening as well, so feel free to introduce yourselves when we're into the networking part of the evening. I just would like to now introduce our final speaker for the evening, who is David Rorsheim. So David's an investor with the South Australian Venture Capital Fund. David previously founded Uber in Australia in 2012 and scaled that business over 6 years into a household name with millions of customers. He previously worked with DFJ, a Silicon Valley VC firm famous for investments in Skype, Hotmail, Tesla and SpaceX. He studied engineering and finance here at Adelaide Uni and an MBA at Stanford. So we welcome David to say a few words.
Think of this not as any sort of speech, but a toast. So if anybody wants to sneak off to the bar, I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. So people have got full glasses for a toast in a minute or so to the Kindship founders. So I'm here representing the SA Venture Capital Fund. There's also Kirsten here, wave a hand, and Alex Griggs, who was one of the founders of the SA Fund and quite involved with the Kindship journey. It's state government money investing in South Australian startups, and they want us to invest in startups that have big potential, not just in SA, but nationally. We've got 2 investments in and around the NDIS care space. There's another one down on King William Road code Lumery. They're providing software for the care providers, make their business run a bit better, and Kindship. As Liz mentioned, I was lucky to be part of the Uber rollout in Australia. That was a pretty simple idea 10 years ago. Let's use technology to make it a bit easier to get a ride. It's ancient memory now, but once upon a time the system was cars just drive around, people stand on the street, stick their hand out and hope that something works out. Technology made that arrangement a bit better. Australia has it's a great asset, the NDIS and what have you. It's good, but not as easy to use as it could be. So Kindship took a look at that and said, hey, can we use some technology? Can we do that a bit better? And they have, but technology is only half of it, for sure. There's the technology piece and then there's the people piece. Tonight, we've seen a lot of that. We've seen the community. Thank you for being part of the community, for being kind folk. All of that's only possible, though, with the founders. So from Summer and Andreas, and then Steph, Tara, and Sandy. The startups are hard. In my career, I've been involved in hundreds, and it's hard work. A lot of the time, it does not go to plan. There's no book you can read which tells you, here's how you do it. It takes leadership. It takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of passion. There's lots of that in the Kindship team, so I think they're headed in the right direction. So cheers to them.
Thank you, David. That's excellent. Lucky to have you here this evening. So just before, I know I'm now standing between David's toast and invitation for a wine, but there are a couple of things I just wanted to mention before we join that. Just fiddling to work out which one works. That one works. All right, excellent. So why Kindship matters? I mean, I don't know that we need this slide after hearing from all of the people that you've heard from this evening, but what we know about parents raising children with disabilities is that they're 2.5 times more likely to have low wellbeing than the average Australian adult. Kindship ran their own survey interviewing or heard from over 1,000 parents, and 41% and a bit were unable to maintain paid employment, and 50.8% experienced financial hardship. And they're spending on average 4 hours a week navigating the NDIS. It was largely this information that they're receiving straight from the parent source that has led them to now developing the wallet part of Kindship, which is what you're probably hearing a lot more about now if you've been following any social media, because you're doing a wonderful job of filling everybody's phones with everything that's happening with Kindship at the moment. So the founding principle stays true, and I think this is absolutely, you would have heard this in the words that weren't said, but you would have seen in all the founding team. They believe that when parents are informed, they are empowered, and when parents are empowered, they can change the world. Absolutely, from the way that they grow their children, from the way that the parents are interacting in the community, and from the experiences that are offered to them by the community around them. So Kindship now is bringing out a plan management service that combines the AI within the conversation of the social network with the power and support of the community. And this is the really special part about Kindship, is that they've really invested in making sure that their community develops and grows their business with and for them. So there are tens of thousands of potential customers here. Kindship has over 2,000 active parents, and like we heard today, there's 90 volunteers, some of those that we've had with us this evening, spending on average an hour a week in the app. Our retention rate is just over 50%, and 82% of the parents in the current Kindship community have joined the waitlist wallet. So the wallet, the way that we're looking for that to work really is to take what the parents are saying within our app and guide them into making some better decisions, or even just understanding really what's available to them. So growing the social network is what Kindship is really all about. Parents are true part of the community. It's their lived experience that is growing everything that you see and hear about Kindship. Providing crowdsourced data, so looking at what we can do to make sure that what is within Kindship and offered to the community continues to learn from what the community wants. How does that currently interact which then will power the plan management tool, which is under development. So any of you that are interested in understanding more about that, please have a look at the investment campaign, talk to one of the founders tonight. There is documentation available on the website with more detail in that, but really what we wanted to really bring forward in our evening today is that this is a parent-driven, lived experience product, looking to make that experience even better.
Kindship started with a passion for parent advocacy and a dream to change the world.
We couldn't find a safe space of our own where parents like you and me could ask questions, share the beautiful and the hard moments, and also our advice. So we built it.
And we will continue to build it. With your support and feedback, Kindship will become home to your cheer squad, mentors and friends.
A space where you, I, and we can be unapologetically ourselves and be surrounded by people who just get it.
This brings me to what Kindship is not. Kindship is not a dating app. Nope.
And we will not tolerate any behaviour that makes you feel uncomfortable or unsafe.
The team and I are here to help. If you get a little lost, need pointing in the right direction, have any questions, or want to get more involved in Kindship, please reach out.
So this evening you are invited to share in the success of Kindship. If you'd like to talk to any of the founding team, help yourself to food, drinks, meet, mingle, understand a little bit more how you can join and be part of the future success of what is an absolutely wonderful product. Thank you all for being here, and on behalf of the founding team, we look forward to conversation for the next part of the evening. It's been wonderful to host you.